David here with Figboot on Pens, back again with another review. Today I have for you a look at the latest limited edition ink from Papier Plume. Over the years, Papier Plume has released many different inks themed around cities hosting fountain pen shows. This time around, the ink is inspired by a location close to the Dallas Pen Show, which is going on this very weekend. How Papier Plume typically releases these show inks is that they are available to purchase at their table if you attend the show, and if any happens to remain after the show, the last few bottles are put up for sale on the company website a few days after the conclusion of the show, until they sell out. And these limited edition inks do typically sell out fairly quickly. The name of this ink is called the Water Gardens, and in order to get a closer look at this ink and learn more about the water-themed art installation which serves as an inspiration, please join me over here at camera 2. Okay, here is the bottle for Papier Plume's Water Gardens. I was a little sloppy during my testing of this ink, as evident by a couple of drips down the side here. This is a green-blue ink with a copper shimmer. You can see the copper shimmer here at the bottom, so you'll want to shake this up, and when you do, you see the shimmer. You have to shake it a little bit more, and the shimmer goes away for a while, but then it will settle near the bottom. That I do like how the wax that they used on the cap matches up to the color of that shimmer. This ink is inspired by a unique park in Fort Worth, Texas, which is Dallas adjacent. That park is appropriately named Water Gardens. The Gardens, as the city describes it, is a beautiful and refreshing oasis located in downtown Fort Worth and consists of a number of different active water features and pools. Several films, television shows, and music videos have been shot there over the years. Back in 1975, shortly after its opening, it was featured in the movie Logan's Run. It could also be seen more recently in the Kendrick Lamar video for his song In 95. Okay, this is what the ink looks like on some Tomoe River 52-gram paper. You can see here that it's kind of a nice teal. It's kind of like a green-blue as opposed to a blue-green. I think it's a little more green with some blue in it as opposed to blue with green in it. And this is with a Q-tip, and then this is a smear, and you can see a little bit more of that shimmer come through. Just in normal use, it's not a heavy shimmer. It's more of a medium shimmer, which personally I prefer a little bit more. And then with some drops, you could really get a solid look at what that shimmer looks like. The drops really bring out the shimmer because it's kind of shimmer intensive. Here is another look at that ink. This is what it looks like in comparison to one of my favorite inks, which is the Saba Midori. It's just like a little bit of a lighter version of that, but it has some of the same features to it. Here it is with Sailor Yamadori. Again, a little bit on the lighter side of that. Then here it is with Diatramentus Sandalwood, and then finally Three Oysters Marine Green. So here we have Papier Plume Water Gardens. This is Rhodia 80-gram paper. I'd say the ghosting is rather low on here. You can see here on the other side, it's on the fairly low side. The bleed is low as well, which is nice, especially for a rather wet ink. The shade, I'd say, is like medium to high, depending on the pen that you use. The sheen is kind of on the medium to low side. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the shimmer is medium as well. In regard to the pens I used today, first of all, up here at the top, I used this 3.8 millimeter Pilot Parallel, which is good for those kind of things. And then, just by happen chance, I chose 3 black pens to use today. The first one was one I recently reviewed, which was the Platinum Godzilla. This is a take on their 3776 model. Wanted to give you another look at that very cool Godzilla nib. And this, even though they say it's a medium, this is really like an extra fine. So we have a Platinum Godzilla. While I do like this pen, the nib is just a little bit too fine for my taste. I'm actually going to, there's not a lot you can do with a really fine nib. It's not like you can add more tipping to it. Well, technically you could, but it's not an easy process. But I might see what one of my Nibmeister friends could do in regard to increasing the nib flow just a little bit on here, because I'd like it to flow just a little bit more, but I don't want to harm this nib in any way. Next up, we have a pen from Montblanc, and that would be the Star Walker. And this is in the Ultra Black, which I care for very much. And you can see that snowflake kind of hovering there in the finial. So we have the Montblanc. And this is the Star Walker. Oh, and this one is medium. And even though that said medium, we'll call this extra fine. And next up, we have a pen that I would consider to be a classic, but one I still very much enjoy, which is the Platinum Falcon. It just has a really cool, unique looking nib. I just think that nib looks really nice, and it flexes a little bit as well, kind of some natural flex. So what we have here is the Pilot Falcon. And this, I believe, is still a medium nib, but we'll call it a flex medium. And that it's a very pleasant nib that I very much enjoy. Okay, so now in regard to the writing sample, we'll start here with the Platinum Godzilla. And I said the Fort Worth Water Garden was built in 1974. Like I had mentioned, it was used in that Logan's Run movie only less than a year later. So pretty close to it opening up was when they used it in the movie. Next up, for the Montblanc Star Walker. Said that the water garden circulates about 19,000 gallons of water per minute. So there is a lot of water moving through that feature. Then finally, we have the Pilot Falcon. I said here that before the water garden, the area was known as Hell's Half Acre and was considered the most dangerous area of Fort Worth in the late 1800s. In the late 1800s, that area was a rest area for tired cowboys driving cattle from Texas to Kansas. The district had like saloons and gambling and brothels and hotels, and people such as Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp visited there. It was considered dangerous due to a lot of the illegal dealings and gunfights and things like that, but it changed in the early 1900s when law enforcement began cracking down on crime in the area. Okay, I did say that the flow on this ink was rather wet. It is a rather wet ink. In regard to drying time, for that extra fine, it was really quick. It was literally just a little bit over 5 seconds. For a medium, you could see that it lasted a little bit longer, closer between 15 and 30 seconds. In regard to a waterproof test, let me put a little bit of water on here. The ink does not profess to be waterproof, but we'll see how it does there. And while we're looking at that, or while we're waiting for that, let's go ahead and look at some chromatography. That I do like how this separates, and it looks like we have some purples and blues and greens and yellows. And then this is what the chromatography ended up looking like. I do think it's interesting, especially when you get some shimmer on there, how the shimmer stays here at the bottom and then expands up into some lighter purples. And then there's the blue and green and yellow. I just think it looks nice. So in regard to the water sample, it actually held up pretty well. It looks like some of the darker blues were a little bit more waterproof. So while it doesn't profess to be a waterproof ink, if you get a little bit of water in there and get it off quickly, then it'll be close to at least still being salvageable. So in conclusion here, said Papier Plume's Water Gardens is a pleasant watery teal with a nice coppery sheen. I do kind of like the copper here at the bottom when you take a look at it. And like I said before, it was a nice touch that they matched the wax up at the top here to the shimmer that's inside. So the price for these bottles, I believe, is going to be $15. If you are at the Dallas show this weekend, you could pick yours up there. And if not, then over the next few days, you'll want to look at the Papier Plume website, where they'll have the last of the remaining stock. And like I mentioned previously, they typically sell out fairly quickly. But this is a nice one to pick up. And thanks go out to Papier Plume for providing this ink for review. Okay, until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.